Yeah,
Hey, Scott, we've got waterwaystravel.com with us this week.
I love it. I've been using Waterways since 2000. So
So
22
crazy.
years, 22 years. And they sent me to Hawaii each and every year for 7 or 8 years and to Indonesia as well. And other places too, El Salvador, all over the world with Waterways. And you know what? That's what's important to me is experience. That's what you don't want brand new Johnny come lately travel guy. You want experience.
Totally. I was thinking about considering their role in the surf business. Think how much they've influenced pro surf careers, what spots you and I dreamed about when we were young. I mean, Sean pioneered a lot of those spots. It's crazy to think the amount of influence he's had over surfing.
It's actually, as I sit here listening to you, I'm thinking Sean's story could actually be a really good documentary. I mean, there's some stuff that went down on Samoa that's just kind of mind-boggling. They had a massive, was it a tsunami or an earthquake or both, but just kind of decimated Samoa. And there's a lot of conflict and resolution and heartbreak there that could make for a good documentary. I'm just assuming. I don't really know the ins and outs of it, obviously, but
Every single spot that they've gone to, I'm sure none of it was easy. The type of work that they're doing is complicated and probably full of even just the human interest stuff, like going into a village and bringing tourism to that village and then helping build the infrastructure for tourism,
right,
and all that sort of stuff.
Which
all
for
of the
sure
human
happened
interest.
in Samoa.
Totally. So anyways,
And
they're phenomenal.
like if you think about each and every individual adventure, like the trips
Right.
that you've gone on, the trips that I've gone on, like there's been some crazy stuff that's occurred,
Completely. Well, I've started getting emails from listeners since Waterways has become a partner here. Listeners who have used Waterways over the years and given me nothing but great feedback. A couple of stories. I should probably read a couple of them on air at some point, but people talking about their great experiences with Waterways. So waterwaystravel.com, the premier surf travel agency, and great partner of the show. So that's, I think, a good reason as well to consider them. Yeah. They support our work here.
You know what? Surfers. These guys are surfers. That's, there's some new players in the space, whatever it might be. And there's not always salt in the building, so to speak.
Yeah, totally. Well, realwatersports.com is also with us. And I'll start the segue into that by asking, how difficult is it for somebody to get a Christensen surfboard right now? You just interviewed Chris Christensen. If they wanted a Christensen, how hard would it be?
Well, if you wanted to order a custom one, you're looking at, I don't know, 18 months, something like that.
Crazy.
But the good news is Real Water Sports has a vast inventory in their showroom online of Christensen surfboards. So you can simply go to realwatersports.com right now, order a board. They'll be packing and shipping it later today.
Yeah, pretty incredible. What a resource. So they're not just a surfboard retailer with stock boards. They actually have these partnerships with shapers, a lot of whom we've interviewed on the podcast, and they do collaboration boards with them. So it is some of the stock boards that you see on those shapers' websites, but they also have one-off collaborations with different board models. And they also order them with all the beautiful artwork that you usually see Christensen's with as well. So phenomenal retail resource, realwatersports.com.
Absolutely. Realwatersports.com. That's your one-stop shop for everything surf hard goods.
Sweet. On to today's show.
Yeah, guy. David, welcome. Good morning. It's Wednesday. No, it's Tuesday, May 3rd. Man. Yeah.
Back on our old schedule.
Tuesday, May 3rd. And
how many Tuesdays did we spend together in the Surfing Heritage and Culture Center parking lot in your truck?
I forgot about the truck ones. We would literally, if the listeners don't know, there was a point in time when David and I would sit in my truck and record this show in a parking lot. And we did it at the Target parking lot one time. Didn't we? Target down there in San Clemente, or what was that?
Seems familiar.
No, it was an Office Depot, I think.
Yeah, it was outside of the truck, that one, but it was the parking lot little bench that they have set up. But the problem was they didn't, Surfing Heritage and Culture Center, which is where we had our home studio, didn't open until 9 or 10 o'clock or whatever it was. And we didn't want to ask the director there to show up early, but we wanted to record early. And that was the halfway meeting point for both of us. So we would still go there and then just record in the truck, which has great dampening effects for the acoustics.
It does. And speaking of salt in the building, of course, one of the issues with that is that the full-time curator there, Barry Hahn, has been known to surf San Onofre each and every single morning. And if the waves were good, it wouldn't be 10 a.m. that he'd show up. It might be 10:20.
Exactly. Barry slacker. So the good old days, but now Zoom we relied on through COVID, and here we are still relying on it, so we don't have to drive, so we don't have to waste precious gas resource.
And time.
Look what I have behind me for our listeners, Scott. How crazy is this?
Sweet. That's a Almeric Channel Islands free scrubber, Tom Curran model, right?
That's exactly what it is. Free scrubber.
A free scrubber.
I think it's 20. Yeah, 20 even.
Oh man, it's just barely making the cut. As I get older, my width gets wider and wider.
So 5'10" in length, 20 in width, and
Don't tell me.
2. I already told you last week.
No, the volume. I was going to guess the volume in liters. I'm going to guess it's 33.6.
33.1.
No, that's amazing for a guy who doesn't know liters. But I actually do kind of know liters now, because I've been shopping for so many surfboards that it's kind of become part of my vernacular.
I try to not even pay attention to liters. I'm going to erase what you just said to me, because I don't care. I don't want to learn liters ever. But obviously this thing,
dude, that's kind of, I get like, that's kind of salty. Like, why wouldn't you want to learn liters? I actually think there is some value to understanding the data, especially for a shortboard. I understand I'm not going to get a 9-foot longboard in the same literage as my shortboard, but
well,
is literage a word?
No, volume's a word though.
Didn't we use literage like 4 years ago, and somebody like slapped us down?
They did. And at that, I think Rainbow actually sent a big email about that. But at that time, a listener also said liters volume is the most reliable metric that he whether it is all shortboard related stuff, but a fish or an alternative shortboard or whatever, he's like, if I get the volume nailed, that's the one that always works for me, regardless, because how do you translate, a pointy thruster to a 5'8" fish for my body type and style and weight and all that sort of stuff? Well, volume is kind of the common denominator for him. So I guess it does serve a purpose, but for me, if I learn anything new, something old has to fall out of my head, and I'm not willing to get rid of the old stuff yet. So I don't want to learn anything new.
Well, and I do think that for paddling power, I think volumes, you know what I mean? Like, if let's say your volume's 34, that you're like 34 liters.
Yeah.
You could ride a 5.5 that's 44 liters. And basically, right. I mean, assuming that obviously the design characteristics are going to be a little bit different, but you could assume that it's going to paddle more or less the same.
Totally. So the reason why I've got this Channel Islands free scrubber behind me is we are giving one away to one of our podcast supporters. So this is obviously, you probably already quote, subscribe to the podcast by clicking the subscribe button on Spotify or Apple or whatever it is, so that it automatically downloads. But a supporter is somebody who contributes the $5 a month to help us run our business. This allows us to document surf culture weekly, reliably, and then archive it. All of the archiving that comes with all these big media files comes with an actual hard cost. And of course, our time, everything else that we do, pay taxes, all that stuff. So we have advertising, of course, which has been inconsistent at times. It's awesome, but the $5 a month is kind of the foundation of the business that we can rely on, that we can project for the future on, plan for, and all that sort of stuff. So it's been fundamental to our business for the last 5 or 6 years. And we're just, as a thank you, we want to give surfboards away. We want to focus on shapers who we know and love, boards that we like to ride, support the surf industry, but also give back to the listenership. So if you are among the supporters, you're already automatically entered to win. You don't have to do anything new. But if you want to get in on this and you want to support our work, go to surfsplendorpodcast.com, navigate to the subscribe button, and you will be entered to win this one. And in future months, when you're a subscriber, you'll be entered to win those as well. And I actually have surfboards lined up for the end of the year. And then when I published this on social media last night, Dennis Jarvis messaged and he's like, dude, let's give away a fireball fish whenever you have time. So bang, we'll add that to the list too.
You know what? This is a wonderful thing that you and I are giving away surfboards. And in many ways, thanks to the board builders themselves. But it's going to be a problem for me because I want to win the fireball fish from Dennis Jarvis. I want to win this board. And of course, I can't win. I'm giving it away. Well, but it's going to make me go down to my local surf shop. It's going to make me go to Real Water Sports and buy these boards. And it's going to be a problem.
Well, you know what I did last year? Because that was happening to me previously, last year I said, okay, here's what we're going to do. We'll get a board. I'll write it for a month and discuss it throughout that month and then give it away at the end of the month. So I'm not accumulating 12 new boards throughout the course of the year. You want to know how many of those I just ended up buying a second one for the winner and just keeping the original one?
Each and every one.
It was a failed effort. So this actually is my free scrubber. The winner, so I did want this board, so I'm keeping this one. But the winner gets to pick one off the Channel Islands website that is their appropriate dimensions.
Right.
They won't be custom made, but they have stock dimensions that they make. So just go on there and find the one that fits you. It's near custom fit. And then we'll figure out the best way to get that for you or get it to you. Last year, somebody won one that was in Australia and we didn't want to ship it to Australia. So we had Channel Islands factory in Australia deliver it to them. Cool. So we'll find a solution like that.
Very cool. Well, look, go to surfsplendorpodcast.com, click on the subscribe button and subscribe. Be a subscriber. It helps David and I, and we appreciate it. Now,
completely
on with the show. Okay.
Big news, Scott, in the surf world. Margaret River's running right now. Waves were pumping last night when you and I went to bed. Make or Break has debuted on Apple Plus. What have you been watching?
Well, I promised you that I would watch Make or Break. And in fact, I want to watch Make or Break. And I was going to watch Make or Break yesterday, but the WSL ran the round of 32 men yesterday. And so I was glued to that. And in addition, the NHL playoffs started, which kind of pushed Make or Break into the back burner. In addition, Ozark came out with their final 7 or 8 episodes.
How good is that?
It's pretty insane. Have you been watching Slow Horses too?
No, I have not gotten back on that.
Gary Oldman is so good in that. It's hilarious. It's great. Anyway, a lot of stuff going on. I really want to watch Make or Break, and I'm going to have to find time in the day today to start watching it. So we better talk about the WSL, which saw some incredible performances yesterday in my mind.
Tell me about the Waves.
Well, the Waves are the stars. Let me tell you that right now. The Waves are the stars. And I'm thinking I might need to get a t-shirt made up that says something like that has like a altered WSL Wazzle logo and just says the Waves are the stars. And I'm just gonna keep saying it until somebody eventually figures it out over there.
What about Kelly Slater's Star Trunks that he won lowers in way back in the day? Incorporate that design somehow.
Those aren't the stars. The trunks aren't the stars. No, the Waves are the stars.
Okay, sorry.
Waves are the stars, man. I had a great talk with Garth Tarlow about this yesterday. He and I were just kind of riffing. I'm going to get him on the podcast soon. Anyway, so what performance-wise, what I saw, David, was I saw some guys stand out that I didn't expect. Not that they're not great surfers. They're all great surfers.
Explain the Waves first. What was
I'm sorry. Yeah. So the waves were meaty, right? They were meaty. They were slightly disheveled, right? There was some crumble. There was some, it was disorganized a little bit, but it was also kind of clean enough to have an event, to run heats. It was probably 10 to 12 feet with 15-foot sets. And it was extremely challenging. It sort of like when they run meaty, big, disorganized Sunset Beach, a slightly smaller version of that, but just truly challenging surfing conditions, and a little bit gray and overcast and onshore, like a side wind, So it was
challenging, but absolutely ripe for like opportunity.
yes. And yeah, ripe for opportunity for the one that would seize it. You had to seize it. There was no, if you just, kind of like, weaseled your way through turns,
no
you
weaseling.
were not getting through.
Well, for those who seized it, but also very importantly, for those who are prepared for it, for those who have done years and years of training, for those who brought the right boards, you had to have all of this training that actually doesn't ever get utilized at a lot of the other stops on tour. So you're training for something that may never even happen. And now here's the opportunity. The sets are rolling in and you have to be prepared. You have to be prepared for a 20-second hold down, doing a bunch of cartwheels underwater, prepared for breaking your board, prepared for swimming, prepared for all of it. And then getting up to your feet and actually connecting turns.
And in some ways, I feel like I need to make an apology to the entire population of the state of Victoria and to Torquay, because I often poo-poo the end section at Bell's as like, oh, it's kind of like, really, is that where all the money is? Is that where the points happen? And of course, it's not. It's the entire length of the ride. And when Bell's is 8 to 10 feet, it's exciting in there. And that's what we saw at Margaret River, right? That end section at Margaret River. But there is no end section on tour like the end section at Margaret River. But the end section of Bell's is its little baby brother. The end section of Margaret River, for whatever reason, bathymetry or whatever it is, it just unloads in a fashion, and it's so challenging. And it really, it's an important part, if not the most critical part. Well, it's not the most critical, but those two, the outside two turns in that end section, are mind blowing. The power, the disruption that happens to the surfer as he cascades and free falls down. It's mind blowing, that end section, when it's 10 to 12 feet.
And it's right in front of that dry reef ledge too.
Right. I mean, talk about, if you were a director, you'd be like, okay, this is how we want that last end section to just break people's knees.
You want drama.
Didn't John hurt himself there one year? Didn't somebody hurt themselves in that inside section?
I don't remember anybody actually getting injured, but people hit it. I remember Courtney Conlog rolling up on it.
Yeah. And you know what I recall? I think what I recall, David, and help me here. John had that knee injury, and we saw him going into that section, and we were all holding our breath going, oh my God, that's going to challenge that ligament right there.
Gotcha.
But anyway, there was 3 guys that stood out. Tell me what you think. I'm sure you had maybe some different standouts. And when I say these 3 guys, I'm not throwing shade on any of the other guys that absolutely killed it and got through their heat. But the most exciting heat was the Matthew McGillivray heat.
Oh my gosh.
Noah Igarashi. And the were just, again, scripted, it was perfect. So maybe talk about that a little bit.
Well, what's exciting about that is Kanoa is unflappable, really. Like he's the guy who you can rely on for consistency more than almost anybody else. And Matt McGillivray got his number last time. They've had 2 man-on-man matchups. Matt McGillivray won the first one unexpectedly. And then this one, Matt McGillivray, the added drama is that Matt McGillivray is on the cut. So he's behind the cut, actually. He needs to make, I don't know what round, but he needs to make heats in order to.
I've got it right here. He has to get 3rd or better.
Okay, crazy, right?
Yeah.
So that's a huge ask. And leading up to this, we saw a lot of those lower seeds actually lose to the higher seeds. Kanoa is top 5. Kanoa was number 1 before Bell's. And so Kanoa's, and then he got 17th at Bells, and you're allowed one throw away. So Kanoa figures, okay, Bells, that was bad, but at least I could throw that away. I need to not have a second 17th place finish here. And ultimately, he came out and did exactly what we expect him to do. He got a couple of sevens, and Matt McGillivray's back was against the wall. Matt McGillivray did not feel any of the pressure. He ripped one wave, and then with limited amount of time, he got a second wave. 3 minutes, 4 minutes?
Yeah.
Okay. So then that wave shows up, and it wasn't a good wave. Kanoa had priority. Kanoa let it go. And Matt, in his post-heat interview, said he looked at that wave and remembered Connor Coffin in the previous heat got a 5 for doing one turn, one good turn. And Matt sized that wave up and he goes, it's a closeout, but there's a section to do one turn on. And if Connor could get the 5, I'm going to get the 5. And I guess that's the score he needed. And what was crazy was it was much more of a closeout than Connor's wave, because it was a crumbling lip. Connor's was an open-faced carve. And Matt McGillivray makes the drop, kind of bottom turns mid-face because he sees that lip coming. And it's the section you're talking about, and it's double overhead. And it's a crazy section. He just throws everything he has up into it, disappears as he's in it, actually, because there's that much chaos. The commentators are screaming, whoa, that's crazy that he would even throw his board up there. Then you see it slap him down, and he's kind of positioned over his board, and they scream again, like, oh no, he's actually going to try to ride out of this thing. Disappears in the explosion, boom, comes out riding out of the thing. Just full pedal to the metal, threw everything at it, and rode out successfully.
Yeah, and the interesting thing, one of the main characteristics of that section is that because it's so powerful, you have to come into that section with more speed and power than that's coming at you, or at least equal it in some fashion. You can't go into it slow. You're going to get swallowed up quick. And he sort of, I mean, he went into it fast and everything, but he barely met the same amount of speed and power that was coming at him. And so he was sort of throwing caution to the wind. He was sort of throwing fate to the wind, because it wasn't like he overpowered the section. And in fact, it was like the section overpowered him, but he met it with just enough velocity and moxie, at which point he was able to maybe halfway get down the face. And now at that point, it was just pure jambalaya. And it was insane, right? Like, I mean, everyone was screaming. I saw it and I was like, I was letting out, verbal anxiety into my screen.
Yeah. It's exactly what you hope that people are going to do out there, and they often don't do, essentially, or they don't even look, they avoid waves like that even have that opportunity. And they go for one that has a longer, line on it, and then a smaller version of what we're just talking about. But for Matt to need it when he needed it, and to go for it, and then to complete it, was gnarly. And Kanoa, to his credit, in his post-heat interview said, I didn't do anything wrong. Like, I surfed exactly like I planned to. I'm proud of my surfing. And this is one of those instances where you can do everything right and somebody still beats you. And it's because I've said this about Kanoa in the past, is that as great of a surfer as he is, he's never going to get 10s. He's always aiming for safety, not safe surfing, but like a pair of 7s is what he's kind of aiming for, which isn't as exciting as watching Felipe Toledo surf or Gabriel Medina surf, because they potentially could get 10s. Well, this is something that Matt McGillivray seized on. It's like, I can go out there and do something exciting that nobody's expecting. And that's the point of difference between Kanoa and myself.
Yeah, it was, I mean, when he paddled for that wave, everyone was like, 5% chance that he bests Kanoa in this heat,
Right.
And he's taking off on a shitty kind of foamy, massive, mean closeout.
Right.
Like, it's no way. Oh, well, Kanoa, once again, the 275s do him right. And no, it wasn't to be. It was just, the whole thing was, like we said, it was
that's why the waves are the stars. And why you say that is, when there's pumping swell, a lot of opportunities, there's these things that lie outside the standard deviation that allow for drama to take place. And when the waves are knee-high beach breaks, somebody like Idolo or Gabe or Felipe can turn a 4-point ride into a 7-point ride, but that's not the same thing. That's not as exciting. You want a double overhead wave that's a 4-point ride because it's a double overhead wave and short to become a 10-point ride because it's death defying.
Yeah, well, you often state, and quite correctly, that, the overarching theme behind the reason all of us tune in is man versus nature. And this was a man versus nature situation. And you'll never have that. And by the way, 3-foot beach break or 3-foot snapper, I don't want to see it.
Right.
It's, yeah, okay, I can watch a couple heats, and I'm actually looking forward to the Challenger. Is it a Challenger series at Snapper?
It is. Yeah,
I'm looking forward to seeing that, because God, the Gold Coast has been on fire the last month or so. But my point is, you're right. Look, we had man versus nature. I mean, when he took off on that wave, we weren't going, what's he going to do against Kanoa? We were going, what's he going to do against this meaty, mean of a beast of a wave coming at him?
Totally. Can I play for you? Did you
Can
see
you hold on?
Chloe?
Can you hold on?
Yeah, commercial break.
I love athletic greens, dude. AG1 is a part of my life. It's a part of my family's life. As I mentioned before, we've tried to get our dog to lap it up on occasion, but we love our AG1 because why? It's a way to get my greens, my vegetables, the intake that I need to have a healthy and sustain a healthy lifestyle. And that's what AG1 does for me. I love athletic greens, and I drink AG1 every single day.
Athleticgreens.com/surf is our portal to support the show. You get a year free vitamin D supply, and I think 5 travel packs as well. Just little pouches of powder, easy. I keep a couple in my briefcase at all times. But I don't know if you saw this at the beginning of the year, big news story in the tech world. AG1 got a $1.2 billion valuation. And I forget, a couple $100 million in capital investment because of that. So they're taking over. And I take a certain amount of responsibility in helping build that brand. Our pumping it here, our listeners supporting it, has helped them get that valuation.
And I will take some of your personal responsibility, and I'm going to take part of that, because of course
that's what I mean, us. But I mean, truly, because
well, here's the deal.
I'm glad just to ride the wave. That's all.
Here's the deal with AG1, right? Like, there's other green powder drinks out there. The difference is this one's organic, certifiably. What's the phrasing that they use? But it's all done the right way.
It's the best product in the market.
By Kiwis.
Yeah, it's the best product.
Who are probably the smartest people in the world.
Agreed. They got Luke Cederman. So there's that.
They've got Rainbow.
They do. So the reality is, you're right. It's got that valuation. It's done what it's done because it's the best product of its kind in the market. And not only that, but it replaces 20 bottles of pills that people have on their counter for supplements that are hard on your stomach. They're expensive. It replaces a lot of grocery shopping to try to get this amount of nutrition. And it's all in a simple powder, 8 ounces of water. It takes 20 seconds to do. You don't even have to go shop for it. It's delivered to your door. So they've really just solved a bunch of complexity in your life and simplified it.
You know what? I did something. I don't know if this is AG1 approved or AG1 protocol. However,
does it involve Haagen-Dazs?
No, but that's my next thing. I'm going to dip my Haagen-Dazs in the AG1. No, I mixed it with orange juice, and it was good.
Yep.
I pounded it.
I've made smoothies and used orange juice in there with the AG1, and it is very good.
Yeah.
So, athleticgreens.com/surf if you want to get on board with this, but they're great partners, and listeners have sent tons of great feedback about it. So thank you, listeners. Thank you, athleticgreens.com/surf.
Yeah.
Well,
at times my urinary flow is so weak that it comes out in 2 streams, not 1.
that has to do with the weakness of it.
I think so. It's just like
just splits right out of the gate. It's like, I don't even have backbone for this.
Yeah, exactly. It's so weak. It's just like,
what do you do about that? Is there anything you can work out, like Kegel exercises or something?
Flomax, I think I need some Flomax. I've had my prostate checked, and it's
How did that go?
it was weird. The guy goes, look, I know this is kind of hard to do, but, and sometimes during this procedure, an erection occurs. And I go, look, I don't have an erection. And he goes, well, I do.
I wasn't worried about you, Scott. I saw that coming, but it
I also
still made
said,
me
where
laugh.
should I put my clothes? And he goes, put them over there next to mine.
Man, you've been waiting to use these jokes.
Actually,
I can tell.
those just came to me.
Dude, this is so true story. A couple years ago, so I just turned 40, but a couple years ago, I was going to the doctor for, I think it was a physical. And my dad or somebody had kind of warned me. They're like, well, you know, at a certain age, they start checking your prostate, right? I was like, oh man, are you serious? Do I need to prepare for this? Like, what do you do? And they're like, I'm not sure, but just be aware that that might be part of this checkup, you know, this appointment. So the nurse takes me into the examination room and leaves me in there. And on the table, there's a box of gloves and a bottle of lube. Like, you know, the table's pretty clean. There's like cotton swabs and the normal stuff, but then there's this stuff sitting out front and center. And I was like, well, I guess I've been mentally preparing for this. I guess it is what it is. This is what my life is like now. I just got to accept it. And the doctor took like 10 minutes to come in. And the whole 10 minutes, I was just stressing. I'm snapping photos of it, sending it to friends. They're laughing at me, making jokes. Doctor comes in, goes, hey, David, how you doing? And then glances over and goes, oh, they left that out for my previous appointment. And then she puts it away. Didn't even use it on me.
Oh my God, you had the full anxiety.
I spent 10 minutes stressing about it.
I told you, this is a true story. It's kind of funny. I had something happened to me where I had to go to the emergency room, and I'm in there, and this is the truth. I hope this isn't, I hope I'm not being racist or something like this, but I'm just going to tell the truth. This is actually what happened. This is
okay.
This Asian doctor came in and examined me for why I was in there, and she goes, you know, like, no, I think my wife goes, hey, honey, you should have your prostate check while you're in here. You're due. And the doctor's like, yeah, no problem. You know, and she puts on a glove and checks my prostate. And as she leaves, I can see on her name tag, it's Dr. Wang. And my wife literally looks at me and she goes, you know, you just had a wang up your butt. And I swear to God, that's a true story. That's not a made-up joke.
That is,
I thought was
first of all, that's not racist at all.
Yeah.
And it makes me like your wife a whole lot more.
Oh, she's wonderful.
Not that I didn't already like her, but that is a hilarious joke.
Yeah.
You just had a wang up your butt.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. This show took a turn that I didn't see coming.
It did. It took a turn.
I'm going to compliment her on that joke next time I see her.
All right.
I want to play for you Chloe Andino's post-heat interview because it brings kind of a couple of things that are interesting about it. He talks about the cut, but he also makes a interesting design change to his surfboards. So hold on. Let me see if I could do this properly.
Yes.
Picked the wave I wanted and I had priority. So yeah, I was just kind of lucky, really.
And you said it wasn't stressful, but obviously paddling out, you are not safe for the cut, neither is Jacko, so it was a super important heat. Were you feeling that in the lead up or just trying to put it out of your mind?
I wasn't really thinking about it at all. A lot has happened for me to fall off the cut. The little Instagram that WSL posted, I was like the first person in the cut bubble, technically. Like the quarters would have to be filled with like 8 guys behind me, so it'd be really hard. So I wasn't feeling it. I don't know, it's just kind of hard, like the whole cut thing, because no one really likes it, but you know, all of us like winning, and we're all friends on tour and we all love each other, so you don't want to knock the guy off tour, and it's just hard. But hopefully Jacko can hang on, because I think he's in the cut right now, so if all the red jerseys win, he'll be fine today.
And talking about the cut, have you noticed like a different competitiveness? Obviously it has been stressful for a lot of the athletes here, but you know, out in the lineup in the free surfs, have you felt that?
For sure. I think yeah, it just seems like it's like a TV show, like a little bit, like it's just like drama all the time. And watching the women's the other day was just heartbreaking with the girls that were losing, and they're just crying all day, and it was just gnarly to watch. But I definitely know like the caliber of surfing has raised throughout. You know, usually a lot of guys, if they get a result or two early in the year, they'll kind of mail it in. knowing that they're going to qualify at the end of the year, or at least the result will come just naturally. So yeah, it seems like everyone's trying their best and everyone's ripping really hard, so it's good for that.
And back to you, you've turned up this morning with a little extra on your board, some added weight that you put on last night. Talk us through that.
Yeah, I went to, is it Miter? What is it, Miter 10?
Miter 10.
Yeah, I called it Meter 10, but it's Miter 10, and yeah, I glued on half a pound. I think it's like 240 grams or something on my board. I wanted a half pound on there because my board was just working way too good when the waves were small, and it's a 6'4", so I wanted it to hold in the strong southerlies. So yeah, I made my heat. I mean, you know, competitive surfing is weird. You could paddle out there on the complete wrong board and win your heat, but so it doesn't really matter. But it felt pretty good, so stoked.
Yeah, well, it looked great, and yeah, keep it going into the next.
So he actually glued weights to the deck of his board for Margaret River, which I think is pretty fascinating. I'd not seen that before. And what are your thoughts on that? And then we can discuss the cut.
Yeah, you know, it's actually an old sort of design amendment, if you will. And in fact, Mike Hinson and other guys over on Maui made surfboards with lead weights in the nose for Malaya, specifically because of the strong trades that would blow when Malaya South Swell harbor wave was breaking. And so it's a, you know, I applaud Kaloe for going there. I think that's a cool thought. I think it probably gave him a lot of confidence just knowing his board had a little bit more weight. And I'm stoked to see that, you know, I'm stoked to see thinking outside the box like that, and then following through with it.
I am too. And I'm stoked. Like, look, the reality is it's impossible to have a quiver of boards for every possible condition that's going to show up at all these venues on tour. I mean, the guy's already getting 100 boards a year, but Margaret has a lot of different looks. And if they run at the box, you could have 10 boards just for the box because you're going to break boards out there. So it makes sense that, look, you'd have a 6'4", but you want to keep it somewhat light because the waves might not be woolly. But then if it does get woolly, I love little solutions like that. And it worked, you know, and to be honest, like I've seen him build weights, put weights embedded in the board itself, like route out some foam. But this is solving the same exact problem. It'll operate the same way, especially if it's on the deck. So I like it. Ingenious, smart, and it worked. So interestingly, he's talking about the cut and he goes, look, nobody likes the cut. So that represents the sentiment that we saw with the petition, all the surfers being pissed about losing their jobs. But then he follows up with, dang, everybody's really surfing a lot better. And the ones who used to phone it in are no longer phoning it in. Now we're seeing better surfing on tour. It's like, boom, that's all that matters then, Kaloe.
And he also said something else. He said, I guess it makes for a good TV show, which is absolutely right. It's exactly what it does. That's what we want.
Turns out that's what this is. This is supposed to be entertaining.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I'm all for the cut, especially hearing him work through that in his head. I think it represented perfectly exactly what a lot of us are feeling. Yeah, it is sad to see Sally Fitzgibbons go down. You know, she's been on tour for 14 years. She's been a bridesmaid over and over, that second place spot, and never won a world title, but also never missed an event. If you can imagine that, she never missed an event in 14 years. So Sally, to see her go down is really unfortunate, but it's also like, look, if you've been doing it for 14 years, that's a full career. And if you didn't do it, if you didn't win it at those times when you were finishing second, now the fact that you're finishing in the back 9 is kind of an indicator of what's to come, and we don't need to see it anymore. We've been seeing it for 14 years. All due respect, you know?
Yeah, Sally's, look, she's a very sweet person. I mean, anyone that's spent any time with her, and all the girls on tour are probably generally very kind and sweet. And it's unfortunate, but yeah, that's what this is. This is competition. Like, this isn't a guaranteed you get to travel around and surf. You have to go out there and prove it. And she's been a top level surfer for 14 years. And it's a bummer. And I know that, look, we're going to see some of that occur here in the next couple of days with the men's side of the equation. And it is what it is. You know, it's big boys. You know, you got to pull your pull your diapers up. Let's go. Like it's time.
Big boys and big girls. And so a couple of interesting losses last night for you and I, when the waves were pumping. Kelly Slater went down to Jadson Andre, of all people. Jadson, who I didn't check, but I would imagine is struggling. He's behind the cut line for sure. I'm not sure what he needs.
I've got he needs a third.
So, I mean, this is Jaddy. This is classic Jaddy. We've seen this from Jaddy literally 5 times.
What are the odds? We're all pulling for Jaddy right now. I am. I would love to see Jaddy make the semis.
Which is what's great about this cut is that I found myself rooting for Joao Chianca
Me
over
too.
Idolo Ferreira. And it's like,
too.
Idolo, I would vote for. I love Idolo. I would always root for that guy, except this cut adds drama. And now I want Joao.
Well, we're bummed that Joao's not on tour. Joao is, we spoke about it, I think, last week, but if we could just pull it together, our own surfers for a tour, Joao would be one of the guys.
Totally.
He's like the wild card. He's sort of the power surfer, the unknown du jour, so to speak.
I think Joao will be back next season. I think he will do well in the Challenger Series.
Yeah.
And I think he'll be back stronger than ever. This guy's around for a long time. What's crazy about this season is that his Kaipo Guerrero was alluding to this a little bit, but Joao's average heat total is higher than a lot of people who actually made the cut, and significantly higher. It's just that he drew John, he drew Idolo. He's drawing these top seeds and taking those top seeds to the absolute limit. He's got 2 of the best heats of the year.
Yeah.
John at Pipe, John at Bells. And he actually beat John at Pipe, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, he beat John at Pipe.
Yeah.
So, but he lost at Bells. So he's pushing to the limits and still losing.
Yeah.
So it's not really fair. Not that matters, but it's not reflective of his performance.
Right. And kudos to the WSL and Kaipo and the data mining there, because that's really a great insight.
Yeah. Other losses, David Silva, Luca Macinas, they're out. Zeke Lau lost to Jordy Smith. I don't know. So things still
Zeke's
have
out.
to shuffle.
Yeah, they do. Chloe
it depends how many people below him do better than him, essentially. Right. But if Zeke's out, that's a story, because I don't care about Zeke anymore. Zeke, I cared about when he first got on tour. I love his style of surfing. I love that he's Sonny Garcia 2.0, and I think the tour could use somebody like him. But if he continually doesn't seize opportunities, then I don't care anymore. And I want to see stuff like what Joao's doing. And Zeke won the Ultimate Surfer, so he gets another chance there. And then he requalifies and he gets a chance there. But when it really comes down to it, he constantly doesn't capitalize on the actual tour itself. So I'm fine with Zeke going away and not seeing him anymore.
Well, when we look at the bottom half of the tour, the guys that are on the cut line here that are still going, we've got Nat Young, who, by the way, was one of my guys I wanted to talk about. We've got Nat Young. Nat Young surfed really, really well in his heat. He caught 2 mean waves, surfed with power, precision. He met that end section like he's been doing it for, like he's been carving into, that big power left at Steamer Lane that comes at you. You know what I mean? He looked comfortable. So Nat Young, Sammy Pupo moved on. Did Connor Coffin move on? No.
Well, that's a story right there. So Connor Coffin and Morgan Siblick, 2 of the top 5 surfers from last year on finals day, are both out.
Yeah.
Officially not requalified.
Luca Macinas, didn't go, right? He didn't move on.
Correct.
Owen Wright did not move on. Federico Moraes, I don't remember.
Yeah, he won his, no, actually. Let me see.
Leonardo, I think he surfed against Leonardo, didn't he?
No, he lost to Caio Abelli.
Okay. Leonardo Fioravante, did he move on?
Nope, lost to Ethan Ewing. Ethan had a phenomenal heat, by the way.
So there's only Matthew McGilvray, Jodson Andre, and Sammy Pupo and Nat Young did Connor O'Leary go through? No, he didn't. He surfed really well.
Yeah, that was a tough heat against Sammy
Yeah.
Pupo. Sammy
Yeah.
got one right at the buzzer.
Yeah. So there's only three guys: Sammy Pupo, Nat Young, Sammy Pupo, and Jadson. And yeah, and Matthew. There's four guys: Matthew McGiveray, Jadson Andre, Sammy Pupo. And these are our storylines. And Nat Young, this is the storyline today if they run the event later this afternoon for us here on the Pacific.
Which they're going to, because there's only 2 days left and today looks much better than tomorrow.
So if you're into the underdog story, which I always am, which is why I'm rooting for the Toronto Maple Leafs, go Leafs. they're those four guys are guys we're going to want to watch. And that's going to affect, maybe it's going to affect the Kaloe Andinos. I don't think so. I think Kaloe is pretty safe. But
no, Kaloe is totally safe, I think. Well, all about the drama. One additional dramatic moment happened yesterday in the morning in the free surfs. Did you see this incident between Jacob Wilcox and the aforementioned Zeke Lau?
No, explain.
I want the WSL to make a comment on this, first of all, and they haven't yet. But Zeke burned Jake on a right at main break in the free surf in the morning. They did a couple of back and forth crossovers, and then Jake took off in front for the final section, and Zeke kicked his board at Jake in the exact same fashion that Magno Pacheco did it to Levi Slauson in the Dominican Republic. They weren't wearing jerseys. That instance in the Dominican Republic was in a heat, and so the WSL enacted a suspension against Magno Pacheco. But this was in preparation for a heat. This was in the free surf. And excuse me, the footage was from, the stairs on the beach. So it's kind of looking down and it's from far away. And you can't tell if the board was 6 inches from Jacob's face or 6 feet from Jacob's face. But unquestionably, Zeke Lau kicked it towards Jacob to the full extension of the leash. And in the footage, it looks again like it's right here, parallel with his face, So again, not sure how close, but right there from the camera angle. So it's like, what the hell? And then they're paddling out and they're exchanging words and splashing each other and all that sort of stuff. So thankfully, Stab Magazine interviewed both of them. And Jake said, look, we had some words in the water and I had the chance to tell him what I thought and vice versa. At one point, he said that it was enough and said, okay. And I said, okay, just shake my hand then and it's done. And instead he splashed water at me like a grub. And that really pissed me off. Imagine if it was the other way around, me in Hawaii dropping in on him and then flicking my board at his head. It would have been an entirely different story. And in fact, he dropped in on me and snaked me at Sunset and Haleiwa. And I just put my head down and copped it because I have respect. And I know that it's his zone and I respect that. And I know my place in the lineup. We even had a heat in 2019 at Sunset where he duck dove behind me and jammed his board into the top of my foot and it cut my foot open and I copped that too. In the surf, he's a bully and he's not used to anybody standing up to him. I told him that I'm not scared and I've had enough and it's a effing two-way street where I come from. And if you have a problem, speak up and work it out. The funniest thing though, is that after all of this, the next set came and wouldn't you know who's on it? I guess he means Zeke's on it. He said, I came in after to squash it on the beach and he was gone. I had a heat coming up, so I had to get in the zone after that. But if he wants to sort this out, I'm happy to, and I can send him my location. So that's pretty straight to the point and giving a lot of context. Then they interview Zeke. Zeke's response was much, much shorter. He said, Jake snaked me after I had been waiting for a peak at main break for 40 minutes. And he said he did it because I did the same thing to him in Hawaii. But I don't remember meeting this kid in my life. I guess it's just the way that some people try to demand respect. But I'm just here trying to do my job and keep my spot on tour. When asked if he intended to hit Jacob with his board, he replied, no, of course not.
So the first thing that comes to mind is intent. Was there intent to shoot? Could he have not was there a way that Zeke Lau could have done something other than shoot his board at him?
There was 9,000 different things he could have done.
He could have just
Shooting the
waited.
board
So there was intent.
was absolutely intentional.
Right. Okay. So that's
He's
a problem.
He's standing with full control, watching Jacob go to the end section,
And shoots
and
his
he
board.
jumps back, shoots
Yeah.
his board forward, and jumps back onto his butt.
Okay. So to me, like all the other stuff is going to be fun to tear apart and talk about and
Hey,
all that.
give me,
yeah.
Sorry, give me 1 second. Keep that
Sure.
thought.
Sure.
Had to lock the dog up before she wakes up the baby from barking.
Well, okay. So like I was saying, intent is the crucial thing here. And I think that we've proven intent. I haven't seen the video, but I'm sure the video shows intent. The leash could have broken. Regardless, the bottom line is Zeke's at fault here. And whether or not they were in a heat doesn't matter. They're within the
Agreed.
professional arena. There are protocols about your behaviors when you're under sort of the umbrella of the professional arena. You can't
Totally
be a
agree.
professional tennis player or a professional basketball player shooting, warm-ups before the game starts and, haul off and bean a guy's head with the basketball. Just because the game hasn't started doesn't mean you're not within the professional arena and that you're expected to behave like a professional. I will say one thing, instant karma kind of came back, maybe not instant, but Zeke Lau's off tour. So there was some, if you believe in that sort of thing, and I'm not saying I do, but we don't have to see Zeke Lau anymore. The fact that he said, I don't even know who this kid is, kind of tells me everything I need to know.
Nailed it.
Yeah.
Nailed it. Not only do you know who this kid is, he's a fellow competitor. He's the wild card at this event. He's been a wild card at previous events that you've been in. He's obviously competed against you in Hawaii as well. Like that's an absolute,
lack of respect,
which by the way, is coming back at Zeke. I respect Zeke so much less now. Like I said, because I was leading up to it when I was talking about him losing in his heat, was I used to like Zeke. I used to like the fact that he was Sonny Garcia 2.0 and like I was rooting for him in certain ways, but time and time again, the guy is a disappointment. And it was a disappointment competitively. Now he's a disappointment from a character standpoint, and it's like, I don't have time for this. Give me Joao Chianca 10 times out of 10. Give me Sammy Pupo. Give me these other guys who are whatever, I just feel I've had enough Zeke in my life. Don't need it. Don't need the negativity. And by the way, I like Jacob Wilcox. Give me more Jacob Wilcox. He rises to the occasion.
Yeah, I agree. I kind of liked Jacob's thing, which was like, hey, I'll text you my location. Let's go meet at the Starbucks out in the back. Let's go.
Yeah.
And I'm not so sure that, in some ways that's also a little bit egotistical, but it sounds like Jacob's been pushed to the limit here, like this wasn't the first instant, obviously. And so anyway, I'm with you too. Part of me is like, hey man, you and I are always screaming about, hey, we need some rivalries on tour, but there's a difference between a rivalry and being sort of acting in a sophomoric way,
Yeah. Well, look, Zeke Lau, I think he's stressed out. It's pent up frustration. He's about to lose his job on tour, all of this. But what he doesn't realize is he's been gifted more opportunity than 99.9% of the planet, and also 99% of all other professional surfers who have come before him. And so he looks like a petulant, disrespectful twerp who's squandering opportunity. And he's just, his perspective is so skewed. If he's going to be,
seems a little spoiled.
He's spoiled. It feels like a spoiled brat.
Yeah.
Is what it feels like,
Exactly.
And so, and again, to show up somewhere else where there's the local wild card, burn the local wild card, flick your board at them, all that kind of stuff. Like, this is Jacob's backyard. You don't show up in somebody's house and then, do something disrespectful in their house.
Right. Just go Amber Heard on the whole deal.
I love that. Did you see the memes that show Jada Smith and it shows her and it goes, I think it's about time we start talking about toxic femininity.
Holy mackerel. Well, look,
Uh,
the other guy that was a standout in my mind was Ethan Ewing, who's not a
Oh, man.
surprise.
yeah.
Not that these other guys were a surprise, not that Nat Young was a surprise, and we know he's got competitive chops. Actually, this is where Nat Young does his best surfing, when it's, you know, if I'm going to see if I want to watch Nat Young in a heat, I want it to be 12-foot Sunset Beach or 12-foot Margaret River.
Yeah.
You know, but
Totally.
Ethan Ewing surfed incredible. And I think he got the highest score, single highest wave score, a 9.0. I could be mistaken, but it was one of them.
Well, he got the highest heat total too. I think it was 17.93.
Yeah.
So pretty exciting stuff. Glad to see him finally finding his form on tour. I know you didn't watch Make or Break yet, but listeners have.
Yeah, let's
and we'll
talk
do
about
a deep, we'll do a deeper dive next week, but I'll give you some things to entice you. So maybe you could prioritize it over Ozark, which I'm loving. We're like 3 episodes in. It's freaking so good.
Yeah.
Make or Break is exactly what you and I have asked for.
Yeah.
So episode 1 is a dud. Strangely, they led with the lamest episode, because I watched episode 1 and then just had a lot. It was entertaining. It was decent, but it was left a lot to be desired.
Let me ask you this. I'm just guessing that episode 1 was sort of like a setup episode for the story, the 5 different storylines they're going to follow.
No, episode 1 was its own storyline, and it was Tyler Wright,
Hmm.
essentially, was the storyline. Excuse me. Tyler Wright's fight for equality, essentially, is what it was. And it was the least interesting episode, the least compelling episode, also the one that I thought was the most revisionist history, because it's her saying that, you know, she's been fighting for these opportunities to surf Pipeline, and now they get the chance to surf Pipeline, and she wins that event. And so she looks like the champion of Pipeline. And it's like, no, that's not the way that happened. The way I remember it, you never got barreled out there, and you were the one who chose not to surf when the waves are pumping, right? So anyways, that's fine. It is what it is.
I don't think
And
so.
then-
I'm not going to give that a pass. That's bullshit.
Well,
She did the sketchiest, like, little top turn thing at Pipe. And
yeah,
so this is the episode where there's a shark attack at Maui.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
they lead with the shark attack. Okay.
Yeah. So, and it's a feel good. I mean, the version that they give you is a feel good story. Who's going to complain about equality and the women finally getting moved to Pipeline?
Yeah.
You know, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Our
But,
complaint about it is a little bit insiderish.
But
Right.
it's the truth.
It's the truth. Exactly.
Yeah.
But does the mainstream America even give a shit about that? Maybe.
They should. They
Yeah, they
should, because
should. They need to.
that's the most compelling storyline, is the one that you and I are talking about.
Right.
That's way more compelling, you know.
Yeah.
Anyways,
Because that's man versus nature.
exactly.
But so's the shark attack is man versus nature too. But you're saying
they
it's
just-
more
they just
about,
touch on that.
okay, yeah, it's more about equality.
Yeah, they don't do a deep dive into the shark attack at all. But from that point on, all the other episodes are precisely what you and I have been asking for. Firstly, it's really only 5 or 6 people. So we don't need 32 surfers. Most of them aren't surfing at a level that's interesting to us. And most of them don't have, I shouldn't say this. I was going to say most of them don't have drama embedded into their storyline through the season that you and I care about, but honestly, maybe they do.
We just don't have time for 32 dramas.
We don't have time for it. You're right. And so what Box to Box Films does really well is humanize these people. And these are people who I've known for over a decade, quote, known for over a decade. And I'm seeing a version of them that the WSL has never pulled the curtain back on before. So Gabriel Medina's episode was, I mean, excellent.
Really?
Excellent. Yes.
Cool.
The guy's crying it out. It's, you know, the first season where he's traveling with his wife on tour. He says, my parents, she says, his family looks at me as a threat and is worried that I'm going to derail his career. And Gabriel says, this is the first time I've been traveling without my family. I just want to be happy. And this person makes me happy. You know, they get into this stuff. But I'll give you more on Gabriel Medina after you watch it, because I have
Yeah,
deeper
yeah, yeah,
thoughts
yeah.
on that.
Yeah, let's. Yeah.
Kanoa, they do an episode on Kanoa, Leo, and Jack, because they grew up on Quicksilver together from the time they were 12 years old, traveling the world. They've all had world title hopes. They're all from 3 different continents. So they give you that background, then they show you kind of what they're currently doing, what role they're currently playing, who's achieving those expectations, who's fallen, behind on those expectations. They do a Felipe Toledo episode where he talks about his mental health. He struggled with depression. He's winning all these events. He's got his family with him, and he's still unhappy. So what is that about? And how do you, accommodate that while still competing? Do you take time off? It's very interesting. Andy King is part of the Gabriel Medina episode.
Mhm.
Andy King, the coach, previously had coached Mick Fanning. He's now coaching Gabriel Medina. He talks about how he lost his hearing. So he was on the professional surfing track. He was at a bar one night, I think on the Gold Coast, got into an altercation with some football club.
Alcohol.
They beat the crap out of him, smashed his head into his curb, boom, lost his hearing, lost his equilibrium in both ears. Doctors said he would never surf again. He's been able to surf, he recovered that, but still lost his hearing 100% in one ear, 90% in the other ear. So, I mean, the Andy King
That's
story,
horrible. That's horrible.
It's horrible, but how did we not know this stuff before? I mean, I knew a version of it, but the WSL never unpacked it. It's not really their job, but still, all of these things that are existing just
wait a minute. Hold on. Wait a minute. We're watching these surf contests. There's so much time to unpack each and every one of these stories. Maybe not in complete depth, but if you're telling me that when they cut to Andy King and they show Andy King coaching Gabe at lowers in the finals or wherever it is, and they don't have time to tell us what you just told me, which took you about 45 seconds.
They have time, and Joe Turpel does it, but what they really need to do is cut away to a package that shows this kind of documentary sensitivity, style sensitivity, because that's what tells the story the best. But Joe Joe fills so much time, and then he ends up copping a bunch of flack because we get tired of hearing Joe Turpel talk all day. You know what I mean? So the WSL could do it. It takes a certain amount of time and money to pre-produce all this stuff, which I think they do have, and they have had the resources to do in the past. Now they don't have the staff to do it because they fired them, but
I'm looking forward to watching Make or Break. I can't wait to watch it. I've heard good things, and you're telling me good things. And Matt Warshaw mentioned some good things in his weekly newsletter. And
one more thing,
yeah,
that you've asked for and the WSL could have told us about very easily was episode focus kind of on Tatiana Weston Webb. And it culminates with her surfing down in Mexico last year at Barra for the event. She has a heat with Sage Erickson. They fully get in a tussle and they're cussing each other out on the beach. The make or break cameras catch it all. And they show Sage like, F you, Tati, F you. That's so cheap what you just did out there. And Tati walking away going, hey, this is business. I'm here to play the game. And I just played the game better than she did. I don't care how much she cusses at me. It's like, wow, how did I never know that happened?
Yeah. What in the hell? I mean,
and Sage is so sweet.
Watch.
I don't want to hear those F words coming out of Sage's mouth. She's so sweet, except
plus we need to hear the backstory. We need to hear the backstory behind it too.
They give it to you. They explain it was a priority situation. I won't tell you, but
yeah.
Bravo for Tati. Bravo to Tati.
I agree.
For seizing the opportunity, and shame on Sage for trusting that her fellow competitor is going to be nice and tell her the rules,
Look, I don't surf in competitions anymore. I don't have a desire. I did it for a long time. And I'll tell you that there were numerous times when I would put on a jersey and there was this like sort of, hey, let's all be bros.
Right.
And I was never that guy. I was like, bullshit. We're competing. All the bro shit. And I mean, I'm competing against my best friends. And some of these guys are good friends of mine. And you know what? No. What do you think the jersey is? We can be bros during free surfs. I'm here to
Right.
win this heat, and I'm going to do everything. If it means backpedaling you up the point, I will.
Yep.
And that's just being a competitor, you know?
It makes it more
Oh,
fun
let's
too.
just be bros. Come on, man. I can't believe you did that to me.
Yeah,
Which part of putting on the jersey didn't you understand?
totally. Well, it's make or break, Scott.
Damn, they should do an episode on you. Me. No, just kidding.
I
I'm looking forward to it.
I not only am I fully enjoying it, I'm halfway through the final episode right now, but it makes me, I can't wait for next season. And I'm like, man, they should have more than, I think there's 7 episodes. They should have more than 7 episodes.
Well, I'm glad it's getting a good review.
I think they're getting their feet wet, or they were last year, and they're realizing there are more than 7 storylines that can be told. What's great about it too, by the way, is it's not a chronological telling from episode 1 to 7.
Yeah, that is good.
It's just a person's story, beginning, middle, and end through the season. So it'll, start at Pipeline and then end at finals day, essentially. I think end at Mexico, actually, until the final episode is just finals day. But once they cut to Stephanie Gilmore's episode, it's again starting at Pipe and ending at Mexico, revisiting the same venues that you've gotten to know, and then seeing the characters that you saw in previous episodes in this one. But they did a great job.
Let me say this, David. Just on what you've told me about make or break, I'm already looking forward to deciding if I'm going to like Felipe more or less, or the same amount. Am I going to like Tati and Sage Erickson more or less? Am I going to like Gabe, who I actually really like, but I only really like him because I want to root against him, because that's what's great about sport, is having a favorite and having a rival. And just like, with hockey or football or whatever, I hate the Dodgers. Look, I got a San Diego Padres hat. I'm a Padre fan. I have been since I was 12 years old. I'm a Kelly Slater fan.
Yeah.
I'm an Ethan Ewing fan.
Yeah.
In many regards, I'm a Felipe Toledo fan in some respects, but I'm also waiting for his full potential to bear out or not.
This gives you a lot more. This gives you a lot more to sink your teeth into.
Yeah, I'm looking
as a fan.
Sounds like they're doing a great thing, and it sounds like they're on the right track, and that makes sense because these is it box to box? These producers, these guys are experts.
Yep. So we'll discuss it more. I'm curious to hear your feedback on that next week. I'm going to say my kook of the week is Zeke Lau, for the rant that I already gave about that. My Duke was from Make or Break, and I can't access it now. I got distracted. It'll come to me. Do you have a Duke or a kook or a must-see moment?
No, I don't really have anything prepared. I apologize.
That's okay. Dang it, I can't remember who my Duke is.
He must not have Duke-like qualities. He must be bereft of aloha.
I guess not.
Well, we'll figure it out next time.
Yeah, and
it's probably Zhao. Is it Zhao?
It wasn't Joao.
Oh, it was from Make or Break. That's right.
I think it was. Whatever.
You're having an old man moment between your memory and my flow.
I got to type these things down.
It's an old show, man.
Got to type these things down. At any rate, Margaret River should be wrapping up this afternoon, so that's always exciting. Where there was a potential they were going to run at the box, and the box actually had some waves 2 mornings ago, I think. Probably not contestable or consistent enough to be contestable, but there was guys out there getting waves.
Oh, good. All right, well, look, we've had a good show. We've said a lot. There's a lot of action coming up probably later today. Hopefully this podcast will get up before then. See what you can do with your producing crew over there.
Okay. I'll do my best.
Get Sophie to push send, and until next time, David, adios and aloha.